Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag drops you into the waterlogged boots of Edward Kenway as he washes up on the beach with nothing but the clothes on his back. Picking yourself up, you begin a trek through one of the many islands that dot the Caribbean. One of the first things you'll notice is just how dang well they did with making these environments look wild and untamed. The lush foliage, the palm trees, the ocean water splashing onto the shore, and the wind through the grass. Even down to the crabs and random turtle you might stumble over. Ubisoft has outdone themselves with their work in this island-riddled adventure.
By God's grace.
After finagling passage aboard a merchant ship, you make your way to Havana, one of the main cities you'll explore during your ship-laden shenanigans. Havana brought back memories of running around Italy with Ezio for me. The crowding in the streets and merchant stalls every direction you look. Even down to the color palette used in the buildings seems to show us that this adventure won't just be wide open oceans and dense greenery of the jungle islands. Once we get settled into town and have ourselves a nice quiet drink at the local tavern, Edward decides to take advantage of the opportunity left at his feet before he escaped the island. Unfortunately, his hunger for riches and reward look to drag him down to the depths if he can't keep his head above water. Let's not forget that Edward is not the only pirate who sails on these seas. Along the way, Edward meets up with many different acquaintances, some friends, a fair share of foes, and a few who fall somewhere in between. Unfortunately, all of them are driven by a different set of morals and ideas, or creeds. And Edward, ever the brigand, is only concerned with his coin purse and livelihood. Playing through the story with this set of supporting characters felt a bit like trying to cross a pit of quicksand. It does support the volatile nature of the pirate code, I suppose, but it was hard to understand why Edward even bothered half the time when the rest of his actions seemed to circle around himself. It did help me feel more connected to Otto Wale, who'd stuck with Edward even when they didn't see eye to eye, but with the rest of them, they seemed more trouble than they were worth. And it could just become more and more obvious as Edward keeps making the decision to stay involved. To find out what happens to Kenway and crew, you're going to have to set sail in this title on your own. I'd prefer not to give away too much of the story for those who haven't played it or viewed the LP yet, so let's just move on to the rest of the game systems themselves. The first time I got my hands on Black Flag was at PAX Prime 2013. They had it set up on PCs with keyboard and mouse configurations. The demo started and I was sailing right at a hostile fort. To say the least, I was a bit lost. Figuring out the sailing aspect was pretty easy, but I got blown out of the water faster than I'd like to admit. But that was lacking a tutorial. After playing through the introduction and being shown that I shouldn't be looking for a specific button to fire my chase cannons as opposed to my broadsides, and instead, just looking in the right direction, it made much more sense. Even though I played the majority of the game with an Xbox 360 controller during my playthrough, switching over to keyboard and mouse halfway through made much more sense and worked very well as an action title like this. On top of just broadside cannons and chase cannons, you also have mortars which can be fired at longer range with the use of your spyglass using the right button on the controller, while fire barrels you can drop from the aft of the jackdaw to dissuade enemies who are chasing you down by simply looking backward and pulling the trigger or clicking the fire button. You can even purchase a ram for the ship's prow to smash into your enemies for heavy damage. The combat here felt very solid in action, and while you truly felt powerful, it can be surprising how fast you can become overwhelmed if you try jumping into a group of enemy ships. You're given enough tools that survivability in most cases shouldn't be an issue, which is alright, but it felt almost a bit too forgiving in most cases. The map is even broke down into areas of difficulty, which doesn't feel right to me. I never found myself peering around, scanning the horizon to make sure I didn't accidentally engage too big of a ship, or just to be sailing around and being taken by surprise from a man of war slicing through the water from behind a small island to try and take down little old pirate me. There wasn't a sense of real danger while sailing in our little jackdaw, which in a game of chasing down other ships and destroying them in minutes, seems like it should have. On land, combat is pretty similar to the previous games, especially AC3. You do get some new tools and some variations on some previously used weapons. The sword is changed to a dual wielding setup, but functions the same as before. The biggest change in your arsenal is the function of your pistols. With the option of carrying up to 4 pistols, you can manually aim them and fire with the right trigger or left click, or simply look at the enemy and let the passive targeting system aim at who it will and simply press your ranged fire weapon button. This transitions well into the pistol combos. The Blowgun is your new silent ranged weapon with 2 options of use, the Sleep Dart and the Berserk Dart. The Sleep Dart is pretty straightforward. It puts enemies to sleep for a limited amount of time, giving you time to sneak by them or get up to them and put them down for good without causing a fuss. On the other hand, if a good fuss is your goal, you can use the Berserk Darts and cause an enemy to go a bit nuts and start attacking everything in his path until the poison wears off and they drop dead. This was a surprisingly fun way to handle groups of enemies since you could just make them kill one another because all of the other guards jump in and try to put down their randomly aggressive fellow in arms. It can still feel a bit lackluster being able to engage 10 plus guards single-handedly since once again, they really seem to enjoy a fair fight and take you on one by one. Same as the ship combat, it feels too forgiving and always has. While sailing around on the open ocean, I was blown away by how slick it can be. The ocean wave physics are quite stunning. Crashing down with the prow of the Jackdaw after rushing up and over a large swell is rewarded with a giant splash of water spraying high over the Jackdaw and then cascading down over the decks and crew, scurrying around trying to hold everything together. Being pulled around on the open ocean while caught in a gale or, God forbid, a tropical storm brings with it a sense of foreboding, and in some cases even panic. Avoiding waterspouts and rogue waves isn't terribly difficult, but if you're not mindful, it can surely sink you. Toss in an onslaught of ships you engage before the storm picked up, or a Spanish patrol that spots you and starts coming after you if you have a wanted level, and you might find yourself running for the nearest clear skies rather than trying to finish off your prey. During those longer, uneventful trips around the Caribbean, you're given the option to let the crew sing a shanty or two to pass the time. I thought it was a pretty great system and feels authentic to the time period, and there are plenty good variety of them available if you don't mind doing a little hunting in some of the larger towns to track them down. I'll admit, I spent more time than I'd like just zipping around and singing along with the crew to Fish in the Sea, Storm Along John, and Randy Dandy O. The hunting system has been brought over from AC3, but to the same degree, maybe not. No longer can you set up snares and plant a lure to bring game to you, so you're going to be spending time sitting in branches waiting for animals to get closer or just blasting them with a well-placed pistol shot. You are no longer concerned with pelt quality, so you aren't given lesser rewards for using a pistol instead of your hidden blade or a snare. What they have done, though, is added in ocean hunting. Tiger sharks, killer whales, and humpbacks, oh my! The new hunting system is pretty fun, but it is just another minigame that feels a little lacking. You start in a small rowboat, basically just hurl spears in an arc in front of you at an animal that you're hunting. Some of the animals will try to attack you at some points, while others are fairly consumed with escape and don't pose much of a threat. All in all, it's a pretty quick engagement and ends rather anticlimactically. I would have liked to see this system opened up a bit rather than a cut-to minigame, with a bit more versatility and rewards rather than just getting generic leather from a whole whale. Don't get me wrong, Black Flag isn't all cannon fire and rogue waves. Just sailing around the scattered islands of the Caribbean collecting treasure and cargo is fun in its own right. Sailing along calm seas when you notice a castaway adrift on a small raft or a crate of cargo left behind by some passerby. Even coming across a sunken ship from time to time. At those locations, you can take advantage of the diving bell, which you can use to gain access to underwater environments. These areas are pretty fun. You end up hunting down chests and animus fragments while trying to make sure you don't drown. The work the team at Ubisoft put in here is easy to see. Some of the things you can spot are just beautiful. On top of locating cargo and sunken ships while on the open ocean, there are a variety of locations on the smaller islands to run around in. Between tiny islands with buried treasure and notes in bottles, you'll find islands with ruins and even small port towns you might not get pointed to during the main quest. The activities available to you in these areas can vary from following vague treasure maps you found around the world to locate hidden treasures, to solving small puzzles for collectibles, among other more involved, widespread activities like hunting animals or tracking down animus fragments. There always seems to be something to do around every corner, but most of it feels pretty similar to one another. The ocean activities are a bit more involved with the diving areas and harpoon hunting, but the exploration on land just feels like collecting things and doesn't feel too exciting after I'd done a handful of them myself. Maybe one day my pirate dreams will be realized. For now, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag will fill the void well. I'm giving it a good fun for its overall enjoyment. All in all, I have truly enjoyed my time with Black Flag. It's been a long time since I found a game that pulled off the pirate setting well. This has come close to what I always hope for in a pirate game, but it isn't quite there yet. An economy system is missing, the ability to change your personal ship, a crew system, no, simply watching a bar go up and down doesn't count, and the chance to have your own ship get boarded would be nice. Wishful thinking, I guess.